Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, and we have an interview tonight with Jeremy McPike. He is a new candidate running for the House of Delegates. He is down principally in Prince William County and Fauquier County. It is the 31st House of Delegate district. He is running against an incumbent, and I want to welcome him by Skype. And so, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming in via Skype, the wonders of technology. We're glad that you are here.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, Jeremy, who are you exactly? And why are you doing this? But importantly, what do you think the voters need to know about who you are?
Sure. Well, my background, first off, I grew up in Prince William in the Dale City area and been here for 38 years. And the last 15 years I've been a volunteer fireman in the community and helping to really see what goes on that a lot of people really don't see, which is there are really gaps in service to both kids and elderly that a lot of people don't get a chance to experience. And my professional background, I started out in construction as a construction laborer 17 years ago and worked my way up to learn carpentry and plumbing work and to pay for a degree at George Mason University in government, and had an opportunity to manage local construction projects. And I've worked for the City of Alexandria for the last 14 years and now serve as the Director of General Services there. And so I've had experience in local government over the last decade, which has exposed me to a lot of what the state is doing and frankly not doing.
You actually live down in Dale City?
That's right. I live in Dale City with my wife and 3 girls. Was blessed to marry my friend of 23 years, and we've got 3 beautiful girls.
Okay, so you've got to schlep up to Northern Virginia every day to go to work?
I do. I commute over an hour and 10 minutes each way, so I feel the pain of 95. And any one little incident can mean missing a soccer practice or being late to important events in life, and it's really tough.
Well, I want to note for our viewers that you are running against an incumbent. I wondered really how much he wanted to run for this position, since he actually tried to win the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor and then had apparently to be convinced to go ahead and run for the House of Delegates. So I always sort of wonder about people's devotion to their job when they decide they're going to try and seek a different political office. But be that as it may, he also, I think, and I wanted to ask you about this, I had read somewhere that he is somehow involved with the Star Scientific Johnny Williams problem that Governor McDonnell is going through. Did I get that right? What's going on in that whole area?
Well, I think it has to do with really the culture of gifting in Richmond. And Scott Lingenfelter is no different from that culture, and he's accepted almost $20,000 in gifts. And I think that's one of the things we fundamentally have to change. We have to put forward ethics reform in Richmond that puts the trust back with the voters. And I think voters have a really hard time hearing about people that have taken trips to Paris and special, box seats at Redskins games for holding their position. Most of us that go to work every day don't get a side benefit for what we do. There's a lot of hardworking people here, and it sort of breaks the public trust, and we need reform in Richmond. You've seen the culture through McDonnell and Cuccinelli and all the way down to Lingenfelter, and we've got to change. I think people at some point get into office and frankly don't realize where they've gotten to and take things for granted, and we've got to change that and hold people accountable.
So part of the gifting that he received was, I think, from the uranium industry, if I recall correctly, and that is an issue that's been down at the House of Delegates. I don't think it applies in your district, but do you have a position on whether or not we ought to allow uranium mining in Virginia?
Well, first off, it absolutely applies. There are roughly 16 to 18 uranium deposits actually in Fauquier County.
Oh.
And they are right in the watershed that goes through Prince William into the Occoquan Reservoir, which is the water supply to Prince William County and Fairfax County. So it impacts this entire region. And this is something I do not support. I think we need to maintain the moratorium on uranium mining. It's simply not proven as of yet with the climate we have in Virginia what the impacts would be. And frankly, I'm not willing to impact our watershed, our water quality, and in fact, the entire region's water quality. That's something we can't afford to do.
Okay. The other thing that I read about your opponent, and I'm not quite sure I'm getting this right, is something about an Agenda 21, which I had thought, based on some of the things I read, was some kind of a UN sustainability program that they put out. But then I read something that your opponent said, and it was very weird. He said it was a radical plan that infringed on American way of life and individual freedoms, and it would erode America's sovereignty. What is that? What's your position on this Agenda 21?
I'm not quite sure I quite understand the bill. That is right, that there was, the bill actually stated it was a radical agenda, basically of the United Nations to take over Virginia. I've been in sustainability and green belt building efforts for the last 10 years, and there's been a lot of great jobs in the economy that's been built around improving our buildings and building performance. So I'm not sure where this sort of legislation and how that's a priority. I've been to and met thousands of voters over the summer, and this has yet to come up as a priority in this district. It frankly is sort of a conspiracy theory that doesn't fit well.
Well, why are you running for office? I mean, Scott Lingenfelter has been there for a really long time. Why are you running?
Well, we've got a lot on the table. The last several years have seen continued cuts in public education and basically a systematic process to undermine hardworking teachers who are trying to do the right thing. We've got to tackle this SOL thing. We hear frustrations from teachers and parents come SOL test time, and we've really got to get folks together to find a better method. We certainly need to have testing and accountability, but rote memorization is not bringing forward the creative thinking to feed our creative economy here in Virginia that we really need for the next generation.
And do you have a position on the Common Core? I know Virginia decided not to go into that. A lot of the other states have, and we decided not to do that. Is that something you think we should relook at, or we need to become more individualized in how we evaluate our teachers and our students and get away from the standardized testing concept?
Well, I think the best thing is Virginia's done over its history is innovate, and we've got a great talent pool here in Virginia. We need to bring some of the best and brightest together to bring those ideas forward and see how we can do it. And it can't be just one measure. It's got to be also how they can critically think, as well as some of the testing. And we've got some great resources here. Let's use them.
Okay. Now you're down in Prince William, and Prince William is sort of known for being sort of anti-immigrant. Where are you on those kinds of issues? I think at one point in time your opponent tried to do a bill to say English would be the official language of Virginia, so which I thought was kind of odd, but it seemed to be sort of along the lines of Prince William and what they were doing. Where do you stand on the whole question of immigration, the enforcement of the various police processes that people say have resulted in profiling, their access to our educational institutions? Where do you stand on all of that?
Well, the one thing that really concerned me out of the dialogue that happened over the last few years is frankly the impacts to the kids. There are so many kids that have been in our school system that are friends in our neighborhoods that have gone up through our middle schools and high schools, and they're the ones that are really getting the short end of this. I have a vision of Virginia that frankly is inclusive of everyone, and these kids grew up here in America. A lot have been here, from 2 and 3 years old, and splitting up families isn't the right answer. We need a pathway that is inclusive, and that's our history here. We've always found a way to be inclusive and need to strive to make sure that that occurs. While certainly those who have broken the law, there needs to be a process, but from a means to address, I know Congress will be addressing this hopefully in the next 6 months, some reasonable means to allow for a pathway to citizenship. But there are a lot of families here that are doing the right thing. They are paying taxes, and they're working hard, and they're trying to pursue the American dream, and we shouldn't punish people for that.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about health care, because Virginia is, of course, considering, I guess, whether we just sign up for the Medicaid expansion. Where do you stand on all of those kinds of issues, the Affordable Care Act, and whether Virginia is really pursuing that aggressively enough?
I think one of the key things is Virginia has the opportunity to expand Medicaid to over 400,000 Virginians, and as well as create 30,000 jobs. This is something that, personally, my wife is a breast cancer survivor of 4 years, and without insurance, we would have had much different financial choices and healthcare choices on the table. And luckily, we came out healthy and successful through that. But there are a lot of hardworking Virginians trying to do the right things to make ends meet. And to hold this up, while certainly there are reforms that need to be made, we need to focus on patient-centric reforms. What's being held up right now is essentially political banter versus helping Virginia families and creating jobs. That's not the right answer. Those are our federal tax dollars that are on the table. We need to utilize those to help Virginia families first.
Okay. And related to sort of healthcare, what about women's reproductive rights? Where do you stand on those?
I'm certainly pro-choice. Those are some of the most difficult questions that are on the table, and frankly, I want to keep government out of those choices. Those are personal in many different ways, and those are between the individual, their doctor, and their faith. And I don't see a role in government in interfering with those. Those are just too personal, and let's stay out of it.
Would you be in favor of trying to have the TRAP regulations, which are, as I understand it, shutting down almost all of the health clinics, women's health clinics in Virginia? Would you be in favor of trying to have those repealed?
Well, those don't make a lot of sense. I mean, those are highly targeted. I've been in the design and construction field, and to have those highly targeted parking space counts and canopy and sort of nuanced things that don't have any impact whatsoever on healthcare are simply building up barriers, and we shouldn't be building up barriers to access to healthcare. That's just not the right answer.
Okay, well, in the last 30 seconds or so that we have, let's tackle a little tiny question, which is transportation. Since you spend an hour or more each way on transportation, where did you stand on the transportation bill? Would you have supported that? Do you have some ideas for fixing it?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of things to not like about the transportation bill, but the one thing to like is it actually gets Virginia moving forward. Since 1986, we've had declining revenues, and over the last several years, we've had the state basically stealing and taking from the transportation.
Yep. I think we're losing Jeremy because our music has come on, which is telling me that we've got to go to break to the end of the show. So I'm going to thank Jeremy for coming, and Jeremy McPike for the House of Delegates.